What's happening, Hacksters? Welcome to another Tuesday edition of Hackster Café. I am so excited, as per usual, because I get to pick all our guests, and I'm very excited to invite on Chloe Madison, the creator of Voidbox Industries, which I'm going to have to ask about, and also, specifically, the PwrTool 500, which has just launched on Crowd Supply. So this is the first mention of this since it launched. Very exciting, honored.
Yeah,
And so we're gonna ask some questions about that. How's it going, Chloe? How you doing?
I'm doing great. A little tired, but we just launched today, and I might sleep for a week after this. So,
Yeah. Oh man, what's the lead up been like?
um, in terms of uh, what per
Yeah,
se?
good question. That was very vague. All right. So, what are the sort of like last few wrap up tasks you've been churning through in the lead up to releasing the product on Crowd Supply? I'm really curious, especially as someone who like is interested in releasing hardware online. I'm like, what should I
You
plan
really need
for?
to. So, like the main thing is just getting all your copy ready, and
Mm,
also preparing or at least theorizing updates throughout the campaign. So
mm,
they really want you to have like one update a week. So I kind of put some things together that would just be kind of, you know, good pokes at people to be like, hey, here's a feature, here's a more expanded concept of a feature, and then I can sprinkle in more like timely updates as well. And I think the biggest thing was also my video as well. Um, Getting it to a point where I was happy with it. I used to be a professional video production person,
ooh,
editing, and it's been a decade since I've done any video of this nature, and I'm really happy with how well it turned out. I've been
it's
watching it
gorgeous.
on a big 4K TV, and it looks beautiful. So.
Yeah, I just apparently I got the file earlier, but I just got a chance to dig into it before the show, and this thing is beautiful.
I'm really
Uh,
happy with it.
I wish I could play your audio over here too, but my setup isn't currently good for
Yeah,
that.
I'm really impressed with the YouTube music library. That was it took a while to find the right tunes. Everybody always ends up with like the same songs from the YouTube music library, but it's fast, and if you take the time to look through it, you can find the right music for the thing you're working on.
Not just ukuleles and clapping and toy piano.
Yeah.
So, if you could give us just a quick overview, I'll take us through the page here, but if you'd like to tell us in your
Yeah,
own words what.
so the power tool is based on an existing like category of products meant for off-grid solar installations, and it's basically what's usually called like a smart shunt or a battery monitor, where you place this in line with your battery or a specific load or charger, and then it's just going to read um, the power going through it in either direction. So it'll read, charging and discharging, and then the difference with the power tool is that it's open source. It's based on ESP32 microcontroller of my own design,
Hmm,
and it's the firmware is based on ESPHome, so that it has direct integration with Home Assistant, which has been like the second most popular project on GitHub for the past 5 years. So
wow.
I think it even made number one a couple times, but I don't remember specifically. But yeah, that's second to VS Code. So
Wow, yeah. And you so the besides like an actual just like software writing tool, that's incredible. Um, so you've got all these different devices that you've been working with. I know you've mentioned before that you've been working with Home Assistant for years, and you designed this system. I think it's worth mentioning early on in the chat that you have your own system set up to control and monitor Gary Bussy, who is that?
Gary Bussy's the bus that I live in. I'm not currently with her right now. I'm actually staying with a friend in Las Vegas because it's way too hot out in Joshua Tree. But yeah, Gary Bussy is a short school bus.
Oh, I have a picture. One.
Yeah, I believe there's a picture on my portfolio
Oh, perfect.
or
Folks, that link to the portfolio and a bunch of other stuff, including the PwrTool campaign, are in the description to this video, so feel free to scroll down and open a new tab for later. Don't go
yeah,
away, but
on the
maybe
left
check them
there's
out later.
actually a page for Gary
Here
Bussy.
we go.
Yeah, that's her a couple years ago in Northern California. And when I got her, I just started building out my solar. I had already been working with custom building lithium batteries and building solar systems on the van that I had before, and also working on other people's vans and buses. And then I really wanted to integrate that with Home Assistant, and that was actually kind of difficult because you have these like the solar market really has its it's really stiffed in like industrial components. So you have like protocols like RS-45 or Modbus and CAN, which takes a little bit of work to get into a format that Home Assistant can read. And not only that, you need like an ESP32, and then you need to be able to figure out how to connect that to 12 volts or 24 volts, 48 volts, which is where the Flip C3 came in, which is literally just an ESP32C3 with a 5 volt buck converter on the back that's 60 volt tolerant.
Yeah.
So work, you can deploy this on any 12 to 48 volt system, and then this is actually the brain of the PwrTool as well. So if you take the front off of the PwrTool, you can see that there's a Flip C3 right there that's sitting on top of the main board, and that's fully removable as well. So
cool. And your website has a bunch of stuff. People can buy the Flip C3 on Amazon. This is a gorgeous website, by the way.
Thank you.
I don't know. I feel like the world moved on from gradients at some point, but I am not willing to let them go. And maybe they're back. I don't know. They're gorgeous. Actually, that sounds super passive aggressive. I promise I'm not being passive aggressive. I love gradients.
No, I think they're useful in certain circumstances. I've recently been doing a lot of design work with gradients
nice.
for Carrie at Alpenglow. So
yeah, love Alpenglow. And it does such a great job of highlighting this and making it look vibrant. Okay, but lest I digress, the Flip C3 is a previous product you're still selling, and is at the heart, as you mentioned, of the PwrTool 500.
yes.
So yeah, in terms of you're making Home Assistant tools a lot more accessible to people who are not like using industrial systems, but also are there aspects of the PwrTool 500 that are especially useful to people doing like schoolie conversions and bus conversions and vehicles type stuff?
Yeah, it's useful in a lot of applications for 12 to 48 volt systems. I think off-grid applications for vans and schoolies is definitely like a majority of that. So, you know, if you have an older system and you want to start upgrading, you can grab the PwrTool and put it in line with your battery. If you have a system that you know, let's say you have like a solar charge controller, but you don't have, you also have an inverter, but it's not, you don't have any data coming off of that inverter, right? It's just like pulling power from the battery. But you do have data from your solar charge controller. You can maybe put the PwrTool in line with your inverter, and then also use the PwrTool to grab that serial data from your solar charge controller, or vice versa. You have one of these newer inverter solar charge controllers, the hybrid inverters, and you want to do
Ooh.
a DC load output. Most of those don't have an output that's going to read your DC loads.
Huh.
And that's really where like I kind of try to do a lot of stuff, is because I've been trying to avoid using inverters for a lot of stuff, because most stuff is actually powered by DC anyways. So instead of boosting up to 120 volts and then
Right.
you're going to come back down to 5 volts or 12 volts or 19 volts anyways, might as well make the most direct path to that conversion, because without getting the losses involved. And
Yeah.
that's actually a really hard thing to access, to actually like set up. There's a lot of steps involved to properly wire anything for DC voltage, and actually properly distribute it, and make sure it's all safe, and make it in a way that's like prototypable, because Gary Bussy, in my circumstances, Gary Bussy is very much a prototyping platform, even though it's also my so
That's so cool.
I'm making a lot of I have a lot of ideas around, not just the PwrTool, but like Voidbox in general is kind of meant to house a lot of this DC power related stuff, that's whether it's integrated with Home Assistant or not. Even though Home Assistant is one of the big topics for the work that I'm working on, I do have new concepts for just like power distribution, fuse blocks, different like terminal blocks, just to help you like make connections with stuff, and not have to change so much, or like anytime something goes wrong, I always have to bust out a screwdriver and unscrew a terminal, and if I can avoid that, I'd really like to. So
Yeah. Well, especially it being your home. Oh, I got so many questions about this because, I just recently managed to pull together some of my robots that have been broken, and like that was for me like a sort of psychological thing because I sort of bond with these things. But like, and like the whole time that they were broken for a couple of years, it was this sort of like thing that sort of messed with my ability to feel really at home at events. But I feel like, living in your prototyping platform obviously has to be a whole other level of that. And I'm wondering if there are any like stories you have of, mishaps or fun things, or, either end of the spectrum or anywhere in between, about like interesting stuff that's happened because you're living in your prototyping
well,
platform, as you
actually,
said.
the most recent thing, it was when I wasn't there. Actually,
Oh.
is running out of battery when I'm not there, and trying to guide somebody into rebooting my system,
Ooh.
which is a conundrum. But we ended up figuring it out and getting, especially when the battery gets so low that it turns off the BMS on the battery itself,
Ooh.
meaning that I had to have them like kind of jump my battery. But we realized that if you actually plug in a generator to the shore power, it'll jump the battery, and it'll be pretty easy to do it from there. But the rest of the steps do actually involve like physically disconnecting a wire, because there's a weird boot up sequence that, like, if you don't disconnect that wire and like reconnect it after everything's on, like it just won't turn on. So
Oh no, that is
weird
like,
weird
oh.
industrial equipment quirks, where like it thinks there's an overcurrent, but there's not, but only because like the capacitors are charging, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
so
Wow, I feel like that's terrifying on both ends. I would be terrified if someone else was like trying to debug one of my systems they actually relied upon and that I relied upon, and then also like being that other person being like, if I mess this up, like I'm screwing up their entire system. Like power electronics in general kind of terrifies me just because like I don't want to, it feels like such an easy way to wreck people's stuff. And I'm so
Yeah,
curious,
you
you've mentioned
can.
that you have, a decade of possibly I think over a decade of video editing experience and production. I'm curious, like as a self-taught engineer, I'm curious about your personal experience and how you built these skills around power, which is such a fraught topic for me.
Well, I think it's not. Things get interesting when you start stepping up your voltage. Like at 5 volts and 3 volts, which a lot of us are accustomed to probably just with Arduino and ESP32s and just USB in general. Um, it starts getting a little weird when you start getting higher, but I'm not doing that much translation. I'm just going from like the 12 or like the 12 to 48 volts, converting that to 5 volts and making sure that one of the big things when I first started the Flip C3 was actually there was I didn't know about uh, transient voltage suppression. So if you plugged in version 1 um, Flip C3 directly to over like 50 volts while it was live, it would just fry your board. It would actually just pop like one of the legs off of the buck converter.
Whoa.
All it needed though was a TSV diode on the input, and then it was perfectly fine up to 60 volts. Like you could previously plug it in at under 50 volts, and then allow it to get up to 60, um, which is normal for a 48-volt battery because it's going to be. I don't remember the numbers offhand, but it charges up to like 58 volts, but it can go as low and under 40 volts.
Right.
Um, and so that was just an interesting thing that you kind of just have to learn by doing, right? Like you run a bunch of prototypes, you're like, okay, I got a bunch of stuff done, and then you like maybe even ship it. I shipped it, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I have this. I think I caught it before, but I just had this. I had to sell the stock, and sometimes you have to, like, that first run, you might have to sell it with a caveat and be like, hey, here's the deal, it'll be updated next time. Like, we'll fix it. But having that communication with your customer base is definitely important. But other than
Yeah.
that, it's not terribly scary as much as you would think. It's not as terribly scary messing around with higher voltage stuff. And when it comes to like high power stuff, like the PwrTool, all of your energy is just running through this thing right here.
Right.
So like once you do break off like your 12 to 48 volts into the buck converter in here, and you're also sensing it, but you're not really doing much, between here and here. And then the rest of the stuff in here is running, off of 5 volts and 3 volts, right? Mostly 3 volts actually. So
Hmm. I guess, yeah. I guess it's that I shouldn't inject fear into my audience. It's definitely my own like projection there. And for me it comes in when it's like the possibility of like frying someone else's stuff comes up. But like again, like you're mentioning, it's open source, and like having this communication with your customer base, I think maybe like you're saying, like gives you more flexibility. People kind of understand that it is like an open source tool and they can like mod it and stuff. A lot of your products on here are open source, if not all of them. as you've
Yes,
mentioned.
everything is open source. Everything I do, I gave up on the thought of closed sourced years ago, when I gave up on like the concept of like patents. I had this whole idea for my entire life about patents, and then I had to unlearn a lot of this stuff and radicalize myself, and then and now I just give away everything freely. And I mean, yes, I build the hardware and I sell it, but like the files are for everybody.
And you've got some free 3D models. There we go. Under here as well, which I think I already opened in a tab.
Yeah,
But
not a ton. I have to sit down and actually like export a bunch of my designs. I
same.
could probably have like 100 things on printables right now if I really wanted to. It's just making a page for each one is the pain.
Yeah, I'm trying to. We've talked a little bit about Meshtastic in the past, and I actually just happened to have horribly 3D printed a little charging stand for my Heltec V3. And this is something that, like, among like 18 different things that I want to like put on, I'm currently putting my stuff on Cult 3D, but maybe printables is the place. I don't know. What do you got there? That's definitely a Heltec.
This is a Heltec, yeah.
I think I got mine partly because you were one of the people who were like working with them. What have you been doing with Meshtastic?
Not much actually. I have 3 nodes right now, so I have 2 of these. And then this is a case designed by Alley Cat on printables. And I actually modified this one with magnets. And I also have a T-deck that's like an older T-deck that's on the roof of my bus, charged by its own little solar panel. And that's like my external node. So this will ping, this is not going to get, while inside my bus, this is just not going to get any signal. So like, you definitely have to have, and even in a house, I always highly suggest, if you really want to get into Meshtastic, is having an outdoor node that can relay your messages in and out. I see that you had not the T deck, the T
Different thing.
Whatever their old 18650 holder one is.
Ooh, I'll have to look that up. There's a newer one, the Plus, that I know has batteries in it, but I'm not too familiar with their older versions because I just got into it fairly recently. Oh, hold up. There's a Meshtastic docs page about it. Let's see if we can find this. With the power of friendship and the internet. Okay. So yeah, this. Oh, sorry.
T-beam. It's the T-beam. I'm pretty sure.
I will pull that up off screen. Yeah, my own experiences recently with Meshtastic over the last like month or so have definitely borne out the same conclusion, which is that my tiny little V3, which is over there because I was like, I'll charge it for the stream, and then forgot to bring it over here. I've definitely been much the same, where it's like I've got one module that I got off of Etsy from, their name is something I've forgotten. It doesn't matter. Anyway, a pretty popular one, and one that's recommended by the Meshtastic team, and it comes with an upgraded whip antenna for like specifically for the 915 megahertz US spectrum, but it does have trouble like picking stuff up, and part of that is of course like configuration. There's apparently a local Bay Area group that has their whole own network on a different frequency than the one that I'm or a different setting that I'm using. It's like a medium speed, slow, like long distance or something. I forget. Anyway, good morning. But part of it is configuration, and then part of it is just like, it's not that powerful of a module. And so, like you say, like putting an external module on there, like the T-beam, which I was going to look up.
Yeah,
a
the thing I
miscellaneous.
wanted, the reason I put the T-beam on the roof also was that I actually created a separate channel for myself and the bus, so the bus can actually, and it's in like a separate encrypted channel, so
Oh,
I actually get
cool.
GPS location on my. I can always have this as a backup, like GPS to my bus, like a LoJack, along with like other options that I have around my bus to track her if I ever lose her. And so, um, yeah, that was one of my big things. And I'd love some sort of like more more data
Oh,
processing um, over the Meshtastic network in terms of like phoning home to Gary Bussy. And I think long term that'd be like interesting use case application to send like just a little bit of JSON data in a message uh,
mm-hmm.
when necessary. Also, uh, ESPHome just added LoRa support as well, so like that would
Cool.
be interesting to do like um, direct messaging um, for
Yeah,
some of this other stuff that I'm working on. Like
there's like this stuff
if you
too.
want to see this display,
Oh, please, yeah. I was just gonna toss in there real quick that, like you were mentioning, ESP Home has just released LoRa support, but also, yeah, it already had stuff like MQTT, which is fully, I think, Meshtastic compatible. They like talked recently.
yes. Well, Meshtastic is using MQTT in a way.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't fully looked into their MQTT implementation, but MQTT was actually what ESPHome originally was built on.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, until before ESPHome was part of the Home Assistant um, like ecosystem, like officially. They had everything was through MQTT, and then once it kind of started getting rolled in, they actually made a direct API, which they say uses about a tenth of the data that MQTT does to transfer, and
Cool.
it's a lot more responsive. I remember when you had to use MQTT, and then it got a lot more responsive over time.
Solid. And I cut you off just as you were starting to show us something really cool there.
Oh yeah. So I was talking about like LoRa and stuff, and I have like different use cases. A lot of the smart shunts, or some of the smart shunts, will either have an optional display, or some of the cheaper ones will that like aren't smart. They just have a little display on them, or they just come with a little like LCD display that's kind of cheap and chintzy. Um, I what I want to do is I want to make a unified UI, or like maybe a little
Mm,
bit customizable, but something that um, my customers can be like download a bin file or an ESPHome YAML and just flash it to any device, and it should be able to give them a little solar display with the maybe the data on the PwrTool, or integrated with um, other data they have for it to view their whole system.
that's
And
so
this
cool.
is the start of one. This doesn't really do much right now. It's all dummy data, um, and I'm just trying to make a kind of a framework for like a HMI displays, because these
Mm,
ESP32 like touch panels are getting really popular, and now that LVGL is in ESPHome, a ton of people are trying to like build for these, and they're still figuring them out, and most of them are not well designed. I'm very much a designer first on everything that I do.
uh-huh.
Here's another example of it with e-paper. This is
Woo!
uh, Joey Castillo's open book.
Yeah.
Um, and this was just a little hello world that I started. But yeah, I think this will be really interesting. And I think with Laura and some of these lower powered, longer range codecs or communication protocols, it'll make for some really interesting like monitoring services. So you don't always have to go into Home Assistant, right? Like, because like, it's not always convenient to pull up your, the app on your phone, or like you just kind of want to have something there that's like glanceable information, or um, just to get the information that you need about, your system, uh,
Yeah.
rather than always having to pop into Home Assistant to do something. It's almost like you get like a voice assistant, and then you're using it for like a week, and then you just stop using it and you're like, I need a switch again. And I think it's very much like that situation. It's giving yourself options, right? And that kind of
Yeah.
goes into some of the other stuff that I'm working with too, is like different different user interactions with Home Assistant. This is actually a really good
Oh.
example right here, which is another Flipsy 3 based device that I'm working on, which is a switch panel. But all of these switches are dual throw momentary switches, so you can put intent behind the action that you're actually going to do. And
Ooh.
I've rarely seen, everybody has these like single button paddle switches for smart devices, and I've never seen anybody like put momentary
Yeah.
uh, dual throw switches together, so you can, on and off in the right the basically wired into us at this point, where up is on and down is off. But if you have like, an actual uh, latching switch, that doesn't work with a like an automation system where, your on or off can be also set somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
But being able to just like throw this 4 switch panel somewhere and hook it up to devices in Home Assistant just makes things like really easy. And also these can actually, the baseboard of these is meant to daisy chain with itself, so you can actually make really long. um, I don't think I brought that one, but yeah, I have one that has 4 of them on
Huh.
a 19-inch rack panel, like a
Wow.
19-inch rack panel. So
Uh-huh. The thing about design is coming through so strongly in everything you do, and I got a couple of. Okay, first I have to mention I adore smoked acrylic, so I love that you did the like transparent smoked acrylic on the switch panel. That's ugh, I'm
that's
such a
just
sucker for it.
one of the panels actually that I got, like a bunch of different ones for this. I don't have all of them with me, and I'm going to get back to this design as soon as I can, but I definitely have some updates to do on this design.
It's
But
so pretty.
really happy with it so far. So
Also, on the design standpoint, I know that you probably didn't design this, though maybe you did. I don't know. But the hoodie for Teardown Conference. Wait, did you choose that because you're launching on Crowd Supply today, or is that a coincidence?
no, I've
It is
been
a
living
sweet
it.
design. I
I've
love
been
it.
living in this hoodie for
It's so good.
since last year's teardown when they had these.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've been living in this hoodie. So they didn't have
Understandably,
hoodies this year, so
it's so pretty. This year's was great too. But last year, oh, amazing. Um, and then also in these diagrams that you make, just like, oh, everyone, look at the isometric gorgeousness. Oh, I also have a question about your company name. So I have to show people this real quick. You brought a bunch of cool stuff to show, but this is something that I got from you. I forget where. Oh, it says I don't know. Maybe Open Hardware some year, but it's obviously sort of like little challenge coin token poker chip type of thing with your QR code on it, which I love. And I just noticed off grid. Is that what Voidbox comes from?
No,
Yeah.
no. Voidbox was a name I came up with in like 2018, 2017,
Uh-huh.
2018. Um, when after I lost my last tech job, um, I was, looking for new jobs, but also like filling my time with making stuff and learning electronics and 3D printing and just building in general. And Voidbox was one of the things that, just one of the names that I came up with. I've gone through several different personal brands over the years, and I needed a new
Yeah,
one.
same.
And it actually came out of a design that I had for making lamps with a Vanta Black alternative, like
Ooh.
Stuart Semple's Black 3.0 at the time, or
Yeah.
2.0, and it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Like, it wasn't like proper Vanta Black. I think the newer versions of his black color are better, from what I hear, but it didn't really like work for what I was trying to do, because I really wanted to like play around. Yeah, I think I used Black 2.0, but a 3.0 I think is better from what I hear.
Ooh.
I just like had this idea of like, can I create a lamp with a light source that's coming out of a void?
Well, they
Right.
got a fourth.
And
Anyway.
yeah. Oh wow, there's a 4.0. Nice.
I was actually just on this site and I forgot about that. Yeah. Gotta pull up your portfolio here again and see if I can find that lamp, because that sounds
I
incredible.
never actually like. I haven't showed off the lamp. There's a little description of the logo, like the logo and the name, where the name came from. Yeah, I just wanted to like. I just had this idea of like light coming out of a void, and I thought that was very interesting concept, and I'd love to come back to that, but that was like an art idea I had, and it just like didn't work out and at the time, and it just ended up being like a name I used.
Legit. It's so funny to me because the void is almost like a 0 or like an off, and then the grid and the box. To me, it works really well together, because like I know that you're not necessarily only making off-grid stuff, but like in a linguistic sort of way, it almost is like a parallel construction of word. Anyway, enough rambling about that. But from me, anyway, you can ramble as much as you want. We do have a question before we move on about your recommendations for LVGL. So apparently, while LVGL is free, the editor is not. So I guess, what do you use, and if you know there's like a tool that people should go for?
I know that so Squareline Studio is usually what people use for LVGL when writing bare LVGL. I believe you would write it in like C++ or C or whatever, IDF or anything. But in ESPHome, you write it in ESPHome for the most part.
Right.
It's been abstracted into ESPHome YAML format. So it is. I tried using Squareline Studio before and never really worked out for me. The reason I use ESPHome is because I don't like writing code. I'm not really good at writing code. So ESPHome was kind of a saving grace for me when I wanted to build hardware, and realizing that I could build hardware with ESPHome. It just made like building firmware and stuff a lot easier. So the real reason is there is no UI that I use to design my UIs. I just write them and then fix them as needed. Like, like a front end developer for web design, right? Just the same thing. Basically going in and reloading the page. The only difference is that you have to build every time, and it just takes time. I mean, it's like yeah, it would be great to be able to use something like Squareline Studio to pre-render or previs, you know, your designs. But I actually find that when I'm designing in the code, I actually come up with better ideas. I think I end up I work with the code itself, because a lot of the times, especially in visual markup languages, things don't work the way you want them to. Like, you know, there's that whole joke about CSS, and then it's like offset, right? I think there's like a coffee mug or something. And it's like, so yeah, like
I love these, honestly.
So you design within the quirks. Yeah, CSS is awesome, right? So you design within the quirks of the system that you're working with, rather than having such a. If you just design on like a canvas in like Sketch or Figma or whatever, you don't have any like. I feel like the constraints actually make me a better designer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Rather than like imposing, you know, taking a sort of abstract design that's floating out there and translating it to a set of constraints from your environment that you're working in, and then instead just like going from the ground up from.
Yeah, and LVGL really wants, or at least in the ESPHome version, it really wants to work in pixel constraints. And if you're building for different screen sizes,
Right.
you need to figure out how to design responsively. And yeah, that's been a while. I kind of started figuring it out just this last week on how to go about doing something like that. So yeah, it's just like building a framework and understanding the tools. And yeah, I actually really love designing with the code itself. So
that's so cool. I also noticed that at least one of your sites, maybe the wiki, I think it might be. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but it seems to be based on Notion. You know what? It's not. It's in GitHub. Gitbook. It's right in the corner there, Alex. I lied. Okay, never mind. That whole question is gone. Well, I guess it comes down to, like, you know, again, a question of designing within the sort of frameworks that you have. You know, as a designer, using Gitbook, you sort of often end up with a kind of a feeling that resembles a lot of other stuff that's made with Gitbook. My bad. Anyway, so I've been using Notion for my like personal website stuff, just because I can update it from my phone, and that means it gets updated at all. And as a person who you know, has a strong design brain and strong opinions about it, I'm curious how you feel about the balance between like the constraints of a medium that you can use, and what your why you choose to use Gitbook instead of designing something from scratch, because it's something that I've wrestled with as well. And I think a lot of our audience are creators who think about documentation, obviously, as well as the things we're creating ourselves. And so that's such a sort of a tension that always exists when you're putting your creative work inside of something to make it legible to others.
So I had I spent a long time in making this decision, a very long time, and there were points where I was looking at every content management system that I could find, and I've had experience in the past with like Jekyll. I had experience in the past writing, straight, straight static sites and PHP CMSs that are a little bit more WYSIWYG, and I really needed, like you said, I really needed something where my documentation is actually going to get updated, right? I've been, I make a Jekyll site, and then like 6 months down the road, I figure out how to build it, right? I have to like relearn it again. So like I needed a system where I didn't need to relearn it every 2 or 6 months, and we have an audio problems. So yeah, Gitbook just ended up being convenient and cheap. I would like to find another solution, and I may build another solution at some point, but I think it works really well for me. And the great thing is that all of my files are in Markdown and are in a filtering system already. So if I do, if I do have an issue, like, or if I do want to build something new, I have all of the markup and markdown files like there as a flat file, and I can build from that. And in terms of like my and I think it also was like a pricing decision too, because I was on Webflow, or I was trying to put a store together for a little while, and I was running on Webflow, and it was really expensive. It was like $40-$50 a month.
Dang.
And I realized, well, at a certain point, I realized I don't really need like a store front on my website. So let's scale this back. So I have my landing page, which I built in Framer, which is really nice, and they give you a single landing page for $5 a month. So you can make a really nice WYSIWYG landing page. It's all WYSIWYG. It's all like just drawn in a page, and it'll give you all your media queries visually. Give you all your media queries, so you'll see like the main page, and then your mobile devices, and you can update them in a WYSIWYG format that's very similar to Figma. Along a canvas, and then but the majority of the information is in the Wikipedia anyways, so like they don't really need much to happen on the homepage other than like make it look pretty and point people in the right direction. So like all of my sales are on Amazon right now, and then everything goes, you have the root, and then it goes to the wiki for the most of the documentation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Similar situation over here, where a lot of my projects are written on Hackster, but I have a sort of like directory on my website, and also like links to other projects and media and whatnot. For anyone just joining, by the way, we are talking about the launch of the PwrTool 500, and I realized I keep distracting you with like questions about your website and whatever. I really want to make sure that we give all your projects the screen time that they deserve. And I know that you had like a number of different things that you brought in terms of hardware to show on screen, and I'm curious if we got through all of those, if there's anything you'd like to highlight that deserves a little more.
We got the power, so we got through all of the Flip C3 stuff. I actually have one more project. I don't have it with me, but the other Flip C3 project that I'm working on is so I have battery monitoring with the PwrTool, or just power monitoring in general, with the PwrTool 500. I have my switch panel here. And I'm working on a MOSFET board for either load control with switching or lighting control with PWM. And it'll be like an 8-channel board think the version I'm working on will be about the same size as the Flip C3 itself. It'll be like more like a backpack rather than like, you know, a whole carrier like this is, or like this is. And that should be able to fit on like a DIN rail somewhere in your cabinet, so you can control your lighting or your loads or something like that.
Yeah.
This is
What is this?
project I'm working on. This is the Power Top. Well, the Power Top 18 to be specific. And it's literally the world's smallest 18650 battery bank, and it's the first time anybody's actually used grabbed power and ground from one side of an 18650 for such a device. And it requires, unfortunately, does require modification of your battery. I call this process circumcising yourselves, because you're literally circumcising yourself. Which, so usually, power or positive is usually the center pin right here, but usually you have like an insulator around the edge, because the entire case is actually ground. So, but you just have this it all the way to the bottom. So most devices are going to pick up from the top and the bottom, which is smart, because, like, you know, you don't want to make, you know, for most people, you don't want to make them cut their cells. And when you do this, you know, you introduce the ability to short this cell really easily. But with, you know, with a cool little gadget like this, you now have charging and discharging from USB-C up to 2.4 amps. And there's 2 ports here, which means you could, you know, put 2 devices on here as long as they're under 2.4 amps, or keep one device plugged in and then use the other one to like charge or something. You know, it has auto detection, but so like you might run into a weird mode that you might have to unplug one of them or something like that. Really well. It's really been a great device. I mainly just
gotta show the little cool light charging animation. Oh, it did a cooler one for a second where it was like
so it starts
going
up
around the
with
edge. There we go.
It starts up with the
so cool.
And then
I've let mine discharge, unfortunately, but from you at Teardown.
There's 4 LEDs on there, and then it's just been super convenient. I really designed it for a lot of my friends do wearables, wearable LED stuff, and
never heard of doing that.
And they wanted something smaller and more compact, because like you get these, you know, the old lipstick batteries are incredibly chunky compared to the 18650 themselves, and I just wanted something that was, you know, easy to set up. You know, you can grab like any 18650 as long as it's a flat top. There's some considerations in the docs there that you should probably read. And 3D print a little cap. This isn't available yet as a product, and there's a little bit of revisions that I want to do before I do put it to mass market. But I gave a bunch of these away at Teardown this year, and people were super stoked about them. I even gave a bunch of people batteries with them. I had about 80 18650s that I gave away with power tops, and somebody else helped me print more 3D print more caps for these, and because I ran out of the caps.
I think I got this one from you at Teardown. There were a lot of people really excited about them. It such a. I love how elegant and like minimal this design is. Like you're saying, the fact that it comes out, it's very minimal, especially for like wearables, and it comes out of like one side. It's like direct to USB-C. I've actually been confronting some of those issues myself with like literally lighting an umbilical cable that goes up my arm with like an LED strip, and working on a sort of linear, I guess you could call it like a power bus type of thing, where taking one battery and turning it into power for both a robot's brain and its motors, but both at the same time, so in parallel. But all the hubs I have are like coming out at weird angles, and it's like horrible, and it's clearly stressing the cables. So having it come like straight out like this and also be very small is such a useful design for that kind of thing, where you're not worrying about like every time I move around, is this like, it's got this horrible shape that's hard to fit into a pocket or a bag
I
or
think
whatever.
one of the greatest examples I saw recently was, oh, thanks, Chippy.
Yeah.
Was Deborah Geek Mom
And so,
just shared using it in like a hat, like a knit hat. And there's a little pocket in the back. I think that's also a project with Carrie as well. And just showed that you can just like slide it right into like what is essentially the edge, just like the rim of a beanie, right? And it's ready to go. You can pull it out. It's USB-C. You could probably charge it in place. You keep maybe this one in, and then you can plug the whole hat in from the side. Or if you just there's so many possibilities that I haven't even seen yet. I just had this image in my head of like concentrically. I just had like this kind of concept of like a concentric battery system in general, using like the interface. Whether that was, my original thought wasn't to use that to connect the battery, but I realized that it would actually work. When I remembered that there's that little crimp edge to just enough to get ground from just like a spring contact on the bottom of the board in parallel with the connector that you're.
It makes so much sense. Well, and of course, you've got 3D models for these available online, and people can get hold of the files as well. You've got a whole GitHub as well with it is actually GitHub this time, not GitHub speaking. But anyway, including like your wiki on here and stuff. But
well, the wiki from Gitbook is synced to GitHub.
Gotcha.
Via the Markdown files. And the PowerTop like project files aren't available yet. But there are the caps are,
yes.
STLs for the 3D prints and stuff. It's a very, very early in the project. I kind of really threw it together, sent out a prototype, got a revision made, and then had a bunch ready for teardown. And I literally have like this is the rest of them right now. So.
Oh, they're so pretty. Who are you getting to manufacture those?
These are from JLC.
I'm talking to some people about like, I think we might have talked about this a little bit at DEF CON even, about just like different types of matte black and oh no, I think it was maybe somebody else. Anyway, matte black PCBs that are always gorgeous. And you've got this, as you mentioned, in the sort of like coming soon-ish section on your website. And there's so much stuff. We're coming to the end of this show, and I feel like there's so much more that I want to dig into here with you, especially including like open manufacturing, and there's this whole like concrete arc that we haven't dug into yet. And I was still trying to go and look for that lamp, and I have your Hackster, and I forgot to bring it up to the to my desk, and it's so
Oh,
Cool with the it's a proto board that is shaped like a little cactus succulent that you can put in a little flower pot and turn it into a thing. It's so
yeah,
cute.
I'm really looking forward
Everyone,
to, Voidbox pivoted over the pandemic, and I stopped doing the concrete work, and I'm hoping to bring that back under my personal brand,
uh-huh.
under my handle Chloe Madison, and probably keep Voidbox mostly for the electronic stuff. But I
Gotcha.
really enjoyed mixing mediums with PCBs and concrete, and there's I think the business card holder that's on there was probably one of my most popular projects at the time. And
oh, nice. Yeah, look at that. That is gorgeous. I can see why. So I'm assuming you're 3D or 3D modeling a mold for the concrete.
I'm 3D modeling a positive in which I make a silicone mold.
Ah, there you go.
And then
right.
And then pour concrete into that. And then there's actually right at the bottom, like how the ball rolls into there, there's actually a magnet embedded in the pouring process, concrete pouring process as well. So there's there's a fixture to hold the magnet, and then it just you pull it off, the magnet comes with it, and yeah, it's just it was a fun design, and I really would love to start manufacturing those again at some point, but we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, that was one of my initial main focuses, was this work for a long time.
Well, if you do, we're gonna have to get you back on, because I have questions about open manufacturing, like you're talking about, and then also there's so many questions around running a business around open source, and I know that you're making it work. And for many people looking at okay, but also that's there's the whole hardware is a hard thing. People also have problems running a closed source hardware business. And I'm so curious about more of your experiences with crowdfunding. But maybe we'll get you on someday again after your crowd supply campaign for the PwrTool, which is why we're here today.
Well, I got three. I got three backers.
Heck yeah! Anyway, cool. Amazing. Already over 10% funded in the first hour or so since launch. Everybody go check this out. There's so much more to talk about. As we wrap up, I'd love to ask if you have any extra thoughts you'd like to throw in there. My general question is very vague. It's just around what sort of technologies are you keeping your eye on that might improve your process or any of your projects, or in your case, Gary Bussy upgrades that would sort of take your work and projects to the next level? Anything coming up in the future? And then next time I'll have to ask you about collaboration and open source business and all of that. Bring up that we didn't manage to get to today.
I think LoRa is really interesting, and also Thread. I think a lot of these alternate communication protocols are really interesting in terms of requiring less infrastructure to run. So direct connection to your nodes without needing a Wi-Fi router, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need, to set up Home Assistant, you need a Raspberry Pi or a little mini PC, and on top of that, you need a router. And if you can shave off some of these necessities from your system, if you could run everything your whole Wi-Fi router off of a Raspberry Pi with Home Assistant on it, and use that to pick up nearby Wi-Fi. Maybe you can also plug in your LTE modem into that. because I have like my network has like 4 or 5 different things. You know, I got a network switch, I got a LTE modem that runs into a UniFi router, and it's ridiculous. And I don't think I wouldn't expect a lot of people to necessarily set that up. So if there's like a box that everything does it in one, that makes it simpler. And then if you even extend that further into things like ESP now, which is ESPHome's own board-to-board communication protocol based on Wi-Fi, that just makes things a little bit easier. And also, like, if your home assistant goes down, they can communicate. You know, your nodes, your switches, your lights. They can communicate directly with each other rather than necessarily always need a home assistant.
Yeah.
And additional things like the upgrade to Zigbee called Thread is really interesting because it adds, you know, instead of Thread was like, or Zigbee is kind of like the protocol and the wireless interface, whereas Thread is based on the similar wireless, but it actually adds internet, like an IP layer through it, and usually you use like the new this like new protocol called Matter, and it's called Matter.
Yeah.
And Matter's kind of trying to be this schema and transfer protocol for all IoT devices, and it's not quite there. It's still a little weird, but it's also definitely interesting. I'm not super.
Yeah, I think Matter supports Thread, right, and a couple of other protocols as well as.
So, yeah, Matter's really interesting, and then of course, you know, LoRa is really interesting too, because now I'm in, you know, Joshua Tree, and usually you have a lot of distance between stuff in places like that Joshua Tree. So being able to have, like, you know, edge nodes that are not even near where Wi-Fi is.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Oh, desert mesh. Yeah, and the mesh thing is so huge, especially in you know, in the Bay Area. Of course, there's a big community of people trying to set that stuff up, but you know, also people trying to build like nationwide networks of mesh devices for various purposes. And then there's Reticulum, another one that's sort of like over LoRa and is a sort of more secure communication protocol, like mesh based and stuff. Someone at DEF CON handed me an ESP32 device with I'm not sure what exactly. I haven't fired it up yet, and obviously I'm gonna do that in a controlled environment. But oh, here it is. You know, all kinds of people doing different stuff with mesh communication and whatnot. This one apparently has better handling of asynchronous communication, so you can pass messages around the mesh even to someone who isn't currently present and save them for later.
Yeah, there's another mesh-tastic like alternate called like MeshCore, I think, as well, that's starting to be popular.
Oh, yeah.
I heard there was some interesting issues with Mesh-tastic at DEF CON this year.
Oh.
So like actual real world test conditions that actually like started showing some problems, which are really interesting.
Yeah.
And, things to think about. So
I saw some stuff around like saturation. I think they were using like turbo short, which is like designed for like short range, you know, like high speed, lots of saturation. But you know, I never actually connected to it myself because I didn't have my stuff set up yet. Would love to look into that, but really interesting stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me take us back through our tabs real quick. Everyone, be sure to check out the PwrTool 500. Just launched right before we went live today. So flattered that you chose now. I mean, I know that you're on a schedule and stuff, but everyone keep tuning in for the updates. I'm so interested to hear about how your campaign goes. There's all this extra stuff we didn't get to, like the flexible polarity of this device, which is sort of an extra goodie on there. Got your Voidbox.io page. and which is sort of like the home of all the Voidbox devices, which are open source hardware. There's the wiki with not just these electronic devices, but also like upcoming stuff like that beautiful switch deck with the momentary toggle switches and older things with like concrete and the Hackster and whatever, which is I think the first of your projects that I ever saw. Plus the Flip C3 that's part of the PwrTool 500 and sort of powers it. Also a lot of really beautifully designed diagrams and stuff. I just gotta mention that again. It's
really
gorgeous. Okay. And then your website with an ongoing portfolio, which has a page for Gary Bussy, the illustrious solar-powered school bus. And then also a Redbubble page with some cool stickers. We've got Blue Sky profile, also linked in the description, I think. And a Patreon where you can follow more of Chloe's adventures and support them as you see fit. Finally, well, I promise I'm almost done here. We got this awesome photo of Gary Bussy in its current form. We've her current form, my bad. And then we've got Geek Mom Project and Alpenglow, which since they came up a couple of different times, these are amazing people. Also Joey Castillo, who I didn't actually pull up, but makes the open book e-paper display that you showed up off for a second. Tons of cool stuff from these folks that they're always just like putting stuff out and sharing, including some 18650 battery-based wearable tech, which I'm sure will benefit, as you mentioned, from your PowerTop device. So everyone go check out all these pages. Just scroll down and you'll find a handy set of links to follow all of Chloe's adventures, continuing to the future, and share with your friends. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much, Chloe, for coming on and chatting to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, absolutely. I got so many more questions for you. Oh, it's a problem. But
I'll come
next
back
time.
one of these days.
All right, everybody, hack on.